Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Prologue. Granny, are you crazy? The tall blonde man asked confidentially and very tenderly, looking into the eyes of the woman sitting at the table in front of him. What are you saying? She waved her hands, her whole appearance showing carelessness. How do you imagine? And suddenly I'm a teacher, the blonde howled, running both hands through his disheveled wheat-colored hair. Simple. The woman got angry, she stood up menacingly, her lush bust swayed dangerously. This is not up for discussion. You are now the captain of the Genin team. Period. You are free. Tsunade had been thinking about this decision for a long time. For several years, Uzumaki, the village's strongest shinobi, had been tormenting himself with constant missions. He will take one of the most difficult ones, go alone, complete it, come back crawling and covered in wounds, barely recover and take on the mission again. The first to contact with an alarming letter was Kuratsuchi, who was considered Naruto's girlfriend in unofficial circles. He saved her from certain death during the war, she helped him later on a mission. That's how their relationship began, only they never confirmed whether they were dating. Then Sakura and Shizune came to Tsunade, complaining about Naruto. All the main supply of medicines and other medical supplies were spent on him. But not only that, they were also worried about the moral state of their friend and hero of the village. Then came Kakashi, Sai, and Yamato, all with the same thing. Worry about Naruto, with whom they recently went on a joint mission. What they experienced there, my hair still stands on end. When Sasuke arrived, who returned to the village because he had nowhere else to go, Tsunade also became worried. Uchiha and his team Taka, after the war, did not know what to do. Naruto just looked coldly at his best friend, shrugged his shoulders and said in an icy voice, "Do what you want, I don't care." Sasuke was speechless from such treatment, wanted to kill Naruto, Konoha, generally destroy this whole world, but then he calmed down and came to Tsunade. The slug princess listened to the renegade, scolded him, beat him and handed all four of them protectors with the leaf. So the Sannin thought hard, in front of a battery of sake bottles, drank, thought some more, drank some more and decided to foist a team of genin on Naruto. Maybe, out of concern for the small shinobi, he would stop rushing into battle so thoughtlessly? Naruto's POV. I left Tsunade very angry. What doesn't she like? I go on missions, I stand guard over order and peace in the village. So what? I stopped thinking about myself completely. I'm not dead yet. I'll get on your nerves even more, you won't get a quick death from me. Thinking so, I walked through the village. It's been a long time since I paid attention to anything. I closed myself off completely. I don't even know when it started. During the war I was still myself, I wanted to save everyone, and I did. Now I'm a world hero. It's very flattering for my very low self-esteem. No, I know that I'm strong and handsome, my fans have told me about it more than once. But that's not it. I stopped living without even starting. I always existed for a purpose, a dream, and after the end of the war, something broke inside me at that very moment. I didn't feel the joy of victory, or relief that it was all over. I just stood in the middle of the battlefield with tears in my eyes, feeling how the great shinobi were finally leaving for another world. Jinchuriki, Asuma, Itachi, Tsunade's beloved Dan, Sai's brother, Gaara's father, and many others. They were all leaving this place forever, returning to the world where they belonged. I was leaving with them. I don't know why, but it seemed to me that a part of me had died and gone too. Only then did I fully realize that I had no parents. Before, it was an immutable rule, a constant, but now I wildly wanted to be hugged tightly by the dear arms of my father and mother. Sasuke came up to me with his crazy smile, trying to sell me something, wanted to challenge me to a fight. I could only turn around and coldly say, "Do whatever you want. I don't care." After that I didn't listen to him at all and just left. End of POV. The blonde walked, thinking, looking around, watching with interest what was happening around him. Indeed, Uzumaki had become so absorbed in himself over the years that he had not noticed life around him. And life was in full swing. The houses had been built long ago, the shinobi were still jumping on the roofs and lampposts, the merchants were shouting, calling out, the children were laughing. A picture of the world and everyday life, but so alive and therefore attractive. Naruto stopped at the academy. The noise of voices could be heard on the training grounds, training. A young man walked over there, watching the students from behind the net. Clearly a graduating class. Children of 11 to 13 years old are fighting and sparring. Here a platinum blonde and a jet black boy are selflessly beating each other up. A girl with chocolate-colored hair is trying to separate them. Shikamaru finally separated the fighters, gave them both a slap on the back of the head, and yelled, which was rare for him. The guys frowned and turned away from each other, and the girl looked at them with helpless fury. "They look like your former team," a growling voice was heard at Naruto's feet. "Yes, that's true," he nodded. "Have you finally woken up?" the voice asked sarcastically. Apparently, the blonde shrugged. "Oh, really?" The owner of the voice jumped onto the blonde's shoulder, also looking at the children with interest. A fiery red fox with wild red eyes, no taller than a large cat. 9 tails moved chaotically behind his back. Kyuubi stopped hating everyone and overcame his anger. Naruto released some chakra from the seal, leaving it in a secret corner of his inner world. Now the fox could take a physical form, from this size of a cat to his true one, at his choice. Kurama had a huge amount of knowledge, and when he was able to get out into the outside world like this, he became even kinder, and taught Naruto the techniques that he had learned throughout his long life. "Let's go," Naruto called, tearing himself away from contemplating the future shinobi. He was very interested in the 3 of them, and for some reason he felt that they would be his genin. And that dark-haired guy seemed very similar to someone quite close to Naruto. The fox and his Jinchuriki walked calmly further through the village. On one of the alleys he met Sakura and Sai. A couple. Apparently Sakura decided that she did not want to choose between 2 eternal rivals, and found happiness in the other direction. Sai had noticeably changed, became more human, emotions and feelings returned, and his jokes became even more raunchy. Which the former ANBU simply loved to drive Sasuke crazy. "Naruto!" the couple exclaimed in unison. Both immediately noticed the change in the look of the other. The wild sparks of joy of life appeared in his eyes again. "Hello," the first radiant and sincere smile in the last 3 years, if not more. "How are you doing?" Sakura immediately became worried. "It couldn't be better," the blonde said venomously. "Tsunade appointed me captain of the genin team." "But that's great," Sai objected. "We'll see," Uzumaki responded sullenly. "By the way, how are you doing?" "Wonderful," Sakura smiled. "We're planning to get married," Sai added in all seriousness. "Oh, I'll definitely come." "Of course you wouldn't come, you'll be a witness," Sakura exclaimed. "Thank you," Naruto blushed, flattered. The 3 friends chatted a little more and went their separate ways, quite pleased with their conversation. Naruto's intuition was right. In a couple of days there was a graduation exam at the academy. The 3 of them really were in his care. The new team number 7, what irony. Uzumaki himself had a fit of déjà vu. He was a little late due to an argument with Karen and Suigetsu. The new captain burst into the auditorium, to his team waiting for him, completely not noticing the rag left in the crack of the half-open door above. The 2 guys burst out laughing, and the girl smiled triumphantly. Naruto sighed sadly and vengefully decided to give them the same treatment that Kakashi gave to the previous team number 7 during their first training session. "Well, let's get acquainted. I am Uzumaki Naruto, Sannin of the Leaf Village, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and son of the 4th Hokage." Now this was no longer hidden information. "I like ramen, I don't like all the hatred in this world. My dream is to become Hokage." "Hey! Only after me!" shouted the platinum blonde, jumping up from his seat. "Sanjo Isami, I like wind, sun, and water, I don't like studying. My dream is to become the coolest Hokage, and I will become it before you." The boy pointed his finger at his teacher, grinning triumphantly. The black-haired guy chuckled familiarly. "Kuga Daisuki. I like Onigiri, I don't like loneliness. My dream is to find my father. Ashikaga I am. I dream of becoming a good doctor," the girl responded dryly. "I like to learn everything new, I don't like lazy people." "Excellent. You have training tomorrow. If you fail it, you will return back to the academy." It's not fair. The guys expressed amazing unity. Having explained to his new students where, how, and why the training would take place, he forbade them from eating in the morning and sent them home. And he went to Ichiraku, where he found Kakashi. The copy ninja became even more like Jiraiya, his eternal porn books, greasy squinted eyes, and an equally greasy smile hidden by a mask. "Hello, Kakashi!" Naruto shouted happily, clapping his former teacher on the shoulder. "Oh!" Hatake was surprised, almost falling face first into his bowl of ramen. Old friends and comrades started at a noodle shop and ended up at a bar. They both got drunk and went to sleep at Uzumaki's apartment. More than 5 years have passed since the war, but the apartment has hardly changed, except for some barbaric coziness. Not skins and axes, of course. But there was a wall with weapons, of the most varied kind, which gave the room a somewhat exotic look. In the corner, there was a huge table, covered with scrolls, books, and other junk. Above the table, pencil drawings were hung. Almost no one came here, so no one knew about Naruto's artistic talent. There were faces: Itachi, Team 7, Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya standing in his favorite pose on Gamabunta's head, Sai and Yamato, Killer Bee and his brother Reikage, the Sabaku brothers and sister, and many, many other familiar shinobi. In another corner stood a bed that was always unmade. Uzumaki made it only when he left the village for a long time. 2 cabinets, a bookcase and a storage cabinet, that was basically all that made up Naruto's room. But the 2 dead drunk shinobi didn't care about the surrounding interior. They simply stumbled into the apartment, lost their shoes in the hallway, found a couple of bottles of sake in Uzumaki's cupboard, drank it and passed out right on the floor. In the morning Naruto opened his eyes with a groan. He felt disgusting, and it immediately clicked in his head he needed to go to training with his team. Ambush. The blonde stood up, looked at Kakashi with displeasure, pushed his legs off himself, stood up and trudged off to tidy himself up. On the front door and window, he left a note for the copy ninja and left. On the way to the training ground, he bought himself an ale and walked, sipping the drink with pleasure. With each sip, he seemed to come alive. Tax team met, they were going on a mission. "Oh, hi," Uzumaki exclaimed, unexpectedly kissing the girl on the cheek. Karen was even confused by such behavior. "What are you doing?" asked the red-haired girl. "Greetings," Naruto responded with a smile, waved his hand at Sasuke and walked on. The poor 3 guys stood there for another 5 minutes, wondering what had happened to the gloomy and unsociable Uzumaki. Uchiha was completely confused. He felt that his friend had changed again, and again was not like the person he remembered. Sasuke began to feel lonely again. He was afraid that he would become an Avenger again, but it was unclear to whom. He was even more afraid that he would start killing mindlessly. "Yo!" Uzumaki greeted his newly formed team, raising his hand in the eternal Hatake gesture. "You're late," the guys responded, again showing surprising unanimity. The girl looked gloomily at her feet. "Let's go," Naruto beckoned to them. Team number 7 went to the training ground and stopped at 3 posts driven into the ground. Sensei placed an alarm clock and boxes with breakfast on the central post. "So, you have until noon. During this time, you must take the bells from me. Whoever does this will get food, whoever doesn't will go back to the academy and will be left without breakfast." While speaking, Uzumaki took 2 bells out of his pocket and waved them in front of the teenagers' noses. "Let's start." The 3 genin disappeared from Uzumaki's sight. The blonde chuckled quietly, created a clone unnoticed, and also unnoticed changed places with him. He went to a tall tree and hid in its crown. Kurama joined him, flying around the blonde like an orange streak, and sat on his shoulders with a red scarf. The fox watched what was happening with one half-open eye. Daisuke and Isami attacked together, proving once again that they were great partners. Although the boys were similar to Naruto and Sasuke themselves, they were still significantly different. Ayam watched the battle, trying to analyze the teacher's actions, looking for mistakes. And she didn't find any. Uzumaki moved as if he were dancing, easily dodging all the attacks of the 2 boys. Even the smile on his face was not going to disappear. The 3 genin were tired, hid again and quietly talked, thinking up a new strategy. It took an unacceptably long time to develop a new plan. Kurama, giggling mockingly, created a clone from his chakra, eavesdropped, then vividly retold everything to Naruto. Uzumaki himself was glad that his students were smart, albeit somewhat impulsive. About 2 hours later, when Naruto, having created another clone, sent him for more ale, he managed to drink it. That clone also ran around the village, collected a bunch of gossip from friends, kicked Kakashi, who was still sleeping in his apartment. Managed to eat ramen, several servings. It was a wonderful day, and especially the training. Finally, the students emerged from hiding and began to plan. I tried to distract him by throwing a huge number of kunai and shuriken at the teacher. Isami tried to hit the sensei as hard as possible. And Daisuke was waiting for his turn to deliver a control blow. Another half hour of grueling fighting for the children, and not one was able to take away the bells. Well, Naruto said with feigned regret, time is up, and you, passed. What? All three of them simultaneously opened their mouths in surprise. You worked together, even though you knew that whoever couldn't take the bells would leave the team. You didn't leave your comrades alone, you united. So you passed, Naruto smiled. The fox was again hovering around his feet, looking mockingly at the students. Oh, who is this? I asked affectionately. The nine-tailed demon fox, Uzumaki replied, smiling once again. The guys looked at the demon with horror and moved away, for which they received tails growing on their backs from the enraged Kurama. It hurts. Isami whined, offended. There is no need to be afraid of me. The fox proudly waved all 9 tails upward. Naruto chuckled mischievously, knowing Kurama's touchy and vengeful nature. Now his students will have a fun life. By the way, do you already have any guesses who Daisuke's father is? This evening Naruto met, already at the bar, Kakashi, Sai, and Yamato. That the last two know how to drink, Uzumaki did not know. And he was very surprised to see this terrible and frightening picture. Kakashi-sensei, have you decided to go on a drinking binge? The new teacher asked, approaching his friend's table. Oh, Naruto. Sai, who was already slightly tipsy, rejoiced at his teammate, jumped up from his chair, ran crookedly to the blonde, grabbed him by the shoulders and forcibly sat him down next to him, and looking deeply into his eyes said, let's have a drink, friend. Uzumaki was wondering why he even decided to go into the bar. Well, so what? He saw people he hadn't had a normal conversation with for a long time, except for Kakashi. What are you drinking? The blonde decided to find out while pouring himself a drink, since the others were already good and would have spilled everything to hell. Well, Kakashi drawled, raising his head and looking at his student with a cloudy gaze. You know, it was scary and very scary. Well, imagine a white-haired drunk man, with different eyes, and from these same eyes the portions of sake from the previous night have not yet evaporated, and a Sharingan, open for some unknown reason, with 3 tomo already spinning. I hope you heard that Sai is getting married soon, so we're seeing off his bachelor life, Yamato said instead of Kakashi. It seems he's the most sober one here. Naruto nodded cautiously. Well, drink to your friend. Hatake smiled happily, even perking up a little. Yamato Taicho, are you sure your senpai won't go on a drinking binge? He's been drinking for 2 days already, the blonde quietly asked the brown-haired man with the unusual protector. No, what are you saying? He smiled in response. Naruto had no choice but to drink that ill-fated portion of sake. In the morning, the fair-haired shinobi cursed everyone in a row. Yesterday or already today, they all got drunk. Saya was taken away by a very angry Sakura at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she tried to disperse the others. Well, they went outside. But Yamato suggested continuing the banquet, and, having grabbed a couple more bottles of booze from a 24-hour store, our shinobi went out for a walk. Everything was going pretty well until Yamato and Kakashi started arguing about something. Naruto had to pull them apart, which is why his whole body is now in terrible pain. Naruto doesn't remember what happened next. He only remembers the stupid laughter, the Hokage mountain, and the paint. It seems they painted the Hokage's faces, and you can't say that Naruto only found the paint, they won't believe it. Having sworn not to drink at all in the near future, Uzumaki got himself in order, ate and went to the Hokage. Knowing that he would be accused of all mortal sins, Uzumaki used henge on himself, so that a living dead man walked down the street, Namake's Minato. Passers-by looked at him in surprise, whispered, but did not touch him, which Naruto was very happy about. In this form he reached the Hokage's residence. Yeah, they really did paint the Hokage's faces. Granny Tsunade will kill him, but he needs to take on a mission for his students. Naruto, as he entered the building, immediately removed the replacement technique, becoming himself. The ANBU under the mask smiled mockingly and looked at each other. They understood their hero perfectly. Several Jonin and Chunin led by Iruka were already looking for him to box his ears. "Hello, Grandma," Uzumaki greeted happily, entering the office with a smile on his lips. "Naruto, explain why you painted the Hokage's faces again?" Tsunade asked deceptively calmly, also smiling. "It wasn't me," the blonde answered sullenly. "And who?" The woman decided to believe him for now. "Kakashi and Yamato," Naruto said absolutely honestly, knowing that they wouldn't believe him. "What? Don't make me laugh. Why would they do that? They're adult shinobi, they don't have time for childish games." "Yeah, but at least it's time for drunken fun," the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox quietly muttered. The Hokage didn't hear him, which is a pity. But she gave such a lecture that Naruto even listened with rapt attention. He hadn't been scolded like that for a long time. "I actually came for a mission," he interrupted Fifth's tirade. "Huh? Give you a mission too? Fine, rank B, and get out of here." Tsunade threw a scroll to Uzumaki. "Hey, Granny, where am I going with the genin at rank B?" He was indignant, but caught the scroll. "What? Come on, give it back." The fifth immediately got up from her chair and headed towards the hero of the village. "Oh no, let's go to rank B, they'll thank you later." "That's it, Granny, I'm running." Naruto very deftly dodged, and quickly jumped out the window. Sensei found his students in a park not far from the academy. Isami and Iam were kicking a small ball they had found somewhere. Daisuke watched them and sighed quietly. "Good morning," Naruto exclaimed cheerfully, running up to his students. "How kind is it?" Isami asked sullenly. "Sensei, is it true that you painted the Hokage's face with paint?" Iam asked, and Daisuke only nodded in greeting and smiled faintly. "What do you think?" Uzumaki asked the girl. "What was that about you?" the brunette said with a smile. The teacher just sighed. "If they think so, then what do all the other residents think? And I have a surprise for you. A mission. Hooray!" Isami and Iam shouted in unison. Daisuke also smiled contentedly. "Rank B, guarding a facility in the Land of Wind," Naruto added, and the genin immediately soured. "Security, it's so boring." But only high rank warmed the soul. "Well, if that's the case, then let's get ready quickly." The platinum blonde and the brunette immediately ran away, waving to the teacher at the exit of the park. "Why are you standing there?" Naruto drew attention to the brunette. After all, he reminded me of someone. Someone painfully familiar. "I have everything with me," the brunette answered, shoving his hands into his pockets. Naruto flinched, another familiar gesture. "Okay then, let's wait for the others." Daisuke nodded and sat down on a bench. Uzumaki sat down next to him. "You said you were looking for your father," Naruto began after some silence. "Yes. My mother told me that he was a strong shinobi. And she always added that I look like him," the boy answered quietly. The blonde man looked at him sideways. Yes, he looked like him, but the one he thought he looked like, it was almost impossible, unless... Here we are. The conversation was interrupted by the girl's cry, which flew like a meteor from the gate to the bench. Isami ran a little slower after Iam. "Excellent." Uzumaki immediately jumped up from the bench, forward, on a mission. And with his first brisk step he walked towards the gate. Soon the Jinchuriki will be in the Land of Wind, and the mission itself is not far from Suna. Just on the way back you can drop in to visit the Kazekage. "Hey, Daichan, don't fall behind," Iam shouted, looking back at the brunette who was slowly dragging himself along at the very end. "Don't call me that." Daisuke immediately got angry, instantly appearing next to the girl, and sticking out his tongue, he rushed forward. "Well, you got into trouble," she shouted after him and sped up. Yes, the genin team was just like Naruto. It even seemed that the serious Daisuke and the quite calm Ayame could behave like this. Although what can I say, they are still children, it's better for them to be so restless than as serious as Kakashi and Sasuke were in their time. With these thoughts, Naruto watched the three mischievous genin. It seems he is even glad that he became a teacher and will find something to teach them. Jiraiya, his father, and his mother bequeathed their will of fire to him. He promised so many people to stop the vicious circle of hatred in this world, and seeing these children, he understood that he had succeeded, just a little bit. A century-old forest. There are many different trees here, from ordinary aspens and birches to bamboo and tall pines. The forest is still very beautiful and ancient. Around the trees, here and there were old traps, long rusted, but not removed. More than 20 years ago, one of the war fronts was here, so the traps remained. All this reminded of those brutal battles, when with sweat and blood, the death of comrades and enemies, peace was achieved. It came, but rather shaky at first, and mainly all thanks to the hero of that war, an incredibly strong shinobi of Konoha. For his speed, he received the nickname Yellow Lightning of Konoha. During the war, many ninja were warned, if you just see run. Yellow Lightning became one of the legendary ninja, he was spoken of on par with the first Kage and the great three Sannin. It's even surprising that some legendary shinobi are still alive, although many have already been taken to the grave by the war. It was through this very forest that a young man was walking, surrounded by three still very young children. The man was very young, about 25 at most. Handsome, with a warm smile, with funny little whiskers on his cheeks, making him look like a mischievous little fox, with rather long, wheat-colored hair, terribly disheveled. If this young man had been seen by anyone who had fought in the war 20 years ago, they would all have immediately shouted that he was Yellow Lightning. But it wasn't him. It was his son, Naruto Uzumaki, the teacher of those same children who were running around the blonde. He was dressed in orange pants and a black jacket with orange inserts, and a red cloak with a black fire pattern at the bottom was thrown over the tracksuit. A large scroll hung on a special belt behind his back. In this appearance, he resembled both his teacher and godfather, Jiraiya. The man walked calmly, smiling kindly at his students. One of them, a lively platinum blonde with a haircut like copy ninja Kakashi, who was the boy's idol. He was dressed in a dark blue turtleneck and loose pants, as many shinobi wear, with two short swords attached to his back. The swords were not simple, they were given to him by his father. The weapons were custom-made, chakra could be passed through them, so the swords were much sharper. And the sensei also promised the boy that he would teach him how to use these weapons properly. The boy's name was Sanjo Isami, he had recently turned 13, and he was immensely proud that he had passed the genin exam and that he had ended up on the team of the hero of the 5 nations. The second boy on the team was Kuga Daisuke. Black-haired and black-eyed, he was already handsome and quite popular with the girls. He looked calm and serious until he was near Isami. As soon as these two were near, they would immediately raise the whole neighborhood on its ears. Daisuke was also 13, only he had turned 6 months ago, and he had been trying to find his father for 5 years. When he was 6, his mother died, which is why the boy had to move to Konoha. There, as an orphan, he was given an apartment, and it seemed like a guardian was watching over him. But Daisuke did not dare give up, he stubbornly tried to find at least something about his father, but so far he had found nothing. The brunette was dressed rather simply, a gray sports jacket, black pants, and a t-shirt. The third was Ashikaga Ayame, a very pretty girl, who promised to become a real beauty in the future. Her hair was long, heavy, the color of bitter chocolate. Her eyes were the color of milk chocolate, and when the girl smiled, they seemed incredibly warm. But more often Ayame laughed and made mischief, so her teacher dubbed her a little imp. She was also dressed rather inconspicuously. A dark green turtleneck without sleeves, under it a long-sleeved mesh blouse, black. The breeches were also black, and over them a skirt the same color as the turtleneck. She also had a belt with 6 scrolls. They contained techniques, weapons, supplies, and even a sleeping bag with a blanket. Ayame simply adored sealing techniques, so she always carried scrolls with her. These 3 kids started a competition to see who could get to the village that was supposed to be on their way the fastest. Well, let them have fun, decided their sensei Naruto. The road is still long, they will have time to get exhausted and lose all their enthusiasm. Naruto also decided that it would be necessary to start training them. But where to start? The man began frantically searching through the nooks and crannies of his memory for what his teachers had taught him. Most likely, at the next halt they should teach them chakra control. Walking on trees without hands, on water, or on any other surface using chakra. The teenagers had already run far ahead, as Naruto sensed the chakra of other shinobi. All the great countries are at peace, which cannot be said about the smaller villages. The fact that they all suffer from the conflicts of the big countries does not really contribute to peaceful intentions. The man quickly created a clone and left it to collect natural chakra, heading towards where his students could be felt. Everything was fine with them and they didn't feel any strangers, which is right, they were still small, their control over chakra was still weak. "What's the matter, teacher?" asked Daisuke, quite surprised by Uzumaki's strangely relieved look. "There is someone nearby, and it's not a fact that they are allies," the extremely serious man answered. The black-haired teenager nodded no less seriously and checked his weapon. Isami and Ayam exchanged frightened glances. This was their first baptism of fire, if everything turned out badly. And they needed to show themselves on the good side in front of the teacher. And anyway, it would be simply shameful to fall flat on their face in front of such a strong shinobi. Naruto's intuition, simply amazing, did not fail him again. Those shinobi turned out to be a gang of thugs from several villages. Uzumaki wondered if the genin could handle them, and sighed, adopting a policy of non-interference. True, only until first blood, if these bastards did anything to his students, Naruto would simply scatter them to the wind. Kurama would help him with that. By the way, about Kyubi. He appeared at the feet of his Jinchuriki and bared his teeth like a beast and began to grow right before our eyes. He grew to about the size of Akamaru the dog, which, together with his red sparkling eyes and sharp fangs, looked impressive. But the gang of renegades is completely brainless, even so they decided to attack, completely desperate guys, the blonde thought. The leaf shinobi summoned his clone and dispelled it, gaining Sannin mode along with it. The appearance changed only slightly, orange marks appeared around the eyes, and the pupils became horizontal, like those of toads. "Sage mode, Toad Fist," he said quietly. "That's Uzumaki, the hero of the Fourth War," whispers went through the gang, to which Naruto only smirked and punched the first criminal he came across. His students desperately knocked one of them out. And it worked out pretty well. Ayam summoned lightning and wind compressed to the size of swords from a scroll, Isami swung his blades, and Daisuke was quite good at summoning fireballs. Naruto casually noted another point in favor of the one he thought of, Daisuke's father. They'll come to the scene of the mission, he'll have to talk to the boy, Uzumaki decided, while at the same time crushing the bones of those losers who dared to attack them with his bare fists. He didn't kill them, but the damage was serious. Kurama just growled, "These are now definitely losers." They immediately shook and gave in. The fox is too scary for them, you understand. "So how was your first serious fight?" Naruto asked cheerfully when they had already tied everyone up. "Excellent," Isami shouted, raising his clenched fist upward. "Naruto-sensei, you knocked out almost everyone." "All we're left with is some scum," Daisuke snorted, and Ayam nodded, also unhappy that they hadn't worked hard enough. "Oh, come on. They're still too strong for you," Naruto smiled. "Then make us stronger," Daisuke exclaimed, looking quite funny with the determination in his clenched fist pose and the thirst for knowledge in his eyes. However, this is what all three genin looked like. "Haha, don't worry, I'll definitely teach you," laughed Uzumaki, ruffling the two boys' hair. He didn't dare to ruin Ayam's hair, girls react very painfully to this. Uzumaki sealed the criminals in his empty scroll, and all four Konoha shinobi set off for the village, the roofs of which were already visible ahead. "Oh, thank you very much," the head of the village clapped his hands, very pleased with the capture of the gang terrorizing the residents. "You're welcome," Naruto replied with a smile. "Let's go, we need to look for a place to spend the night," said Uzumaki, leaving the building where the head of the village lives. Three genin were waiting for him in front of the gate. They looked around and started arguing again. But as soon as the teacher came out, he immediately brought the teenagers to heel. Each of them didn't really want to admit it out loud, But they understood to themselves that their teacher was indeed the hero of Konoha and all 5 nations. "Why are you so quiet?" The fair-haired man was surprised, turning to look at his 2 quiet students. "Nothing," they immediately answered. "Well, just watch me." The team went to the hotel. There was only one, but it was quite nice and cozy inside. And all the inhabitants of the village lost in the woods are kind and responsive. It is pleasant to communicate with such people. The hotel workers greeted them as family, immediately feeding them to the brim. "Thank you very much." Naruto broke into a very infectious smile, thanking the old woman who cooked food for them all. "Oh, what are you saying, young man? Everything is fine." "No. I can't do that. Maybe I can help you with something?" Uzumaki immediately volunteered. "Sit still," the woman shouted slightly, still smiling. "Okay then, more." The woman smiled again and headed to the kitchen. Naruto students could only sit with their mouths open. "What's wrong with you? How can you fit so much in?" I am whispered. "It's right that girls take care of their figures, always on diets." "That's because I spend a lot of chakra, and to replenish the energy to accumulate it, I need to eat a lot," Naruto answered with a smart look, raising his index finger up. The genins shrugged their shoulders and left the table. "We'll go to the room." "Don't you want to practice?" Uzumaki looked up from his food and narrowed his eyes slyly. "We want to." He has a friendly team after all, look, they always answer in chorus. Naruto made a seal and created a clone. It went with the students. After them, a red scarf shook, as the Jinchuriki sometimes calls his Biju Kurama. "First, you must improve your chakra control, just to the perfect state." Naruto's clone began the lecture. "Hold on, guys, I'll squeeze every drop of juice out of you," Kurama warned, baring his teeth predatorily and even licking his lips. They flinched, but did not show their fear, for which Kyubi mentally praised them. "Well done." The clone approached a mighty tree standing nearby. "Look. Gather chakra in your legs, and..." The teacher climbed straight up the tree without hands. Yes, the same old trick, but these are the basics. Without them, any normal shinobi can't do anything. "Wow." Isami shouted. Daisuke and Ayam didn't waste time on useless shouts and began to concentrate chakra in their legs. 3 hours later, the original Naruto returned. Uzumaki had helped the cook, and not only her. And now he came to watch his students training, satisfied. They had already started to get something, their control was initially at a pretty good level. Naruto also watched Daisuke. He had the best results so far. You can see the genes right away. I must not forget to talk to him, Uzumaki Naruto reminded himself. But how can you tell a child looking for his father that his father has long since died? For now, Naruto decided to at least finish training, and then start intelligent conversations. Chapter 5 Chapter 5 First mission, continuation, arrival in the land of wind. In the evening the genins were exhausted, but they were able to learn to walk in trees quite well. Excellent. This is only the first step, and it will be much easier later. The main thing is not to be lazy and not to give up. Naruto knows a thing or two about that. Where would he be if he had given up at the beginning of the training? He would probably have died. Uzumaki-sensei sent his students back to the hotel to rest and get some sleep. Tomorrow morning they will continue their journey. And anyway, they need to hurry, the order will not wait. And he himself remained in the same clearing together with Kurama. The fox was running around the clearing, hunting some insects, either butterflies or moths. Well, even formidable demons need to relax and let off steam sometimes, and Kurama is still a beast, although Naruto had no doubt that if the fox needed it, he could take on human form. Well, what do you say? Uzumaki asked, leaning his back against a tree and looking at the heavily breathing Kurama, who had already run around and lay down right on the ground. What can I say? Surprisingly smart students. With proper training they will become no weaker than you, Kyubi responded. Naruto smiled, he thought so too. I wonder if Tsunade had picked this team for him on purpose or if it was just a coincidence. There was no answer yet, and the new teacher didn't really think about it. Why think about something, suffer and torment yourself when you can just not think? Everything will resolve itself. Uzumaki, looking at the fox, got up from the ground and went to the hotel. He also needed to get some sleep. Because of the stop, they had to rush to their mission site at a breakneck pace. The students, silently, gritting their teeth, endured the strain. But by evening, the tired shinobi were not only in the land of wind, but also in the right city. The customer was a merchant, and the warehouse needed to be guarded. A tedious job, as Naruto-sensei had expected. His students were quite happy, the mission was quite easy, and they would be able to train. The genin somehow forgot that the mission was B rank, and it would definitely not be easy. Moreover, they forgot that their teacher was Naruto, who constantly got into adventures to his own detriment. The warehouse was quite small, so Naruto put everyone in pairs. He also thought about talking to Daisuke right now. Kuga stood calmly at his post, thinking about something. It was unclear what, but judging by the sideways glances he was giving the teacher, the boy was trying to form an opinion about him. Naruto sighed and came closer. He didn't know where to start talking at all. "Sensei," Daisuke called, and hesitated, also not knowing how to start the dialogue. In their last conversation, the dark-haired boy thought that Uzumaki-sensei knew something about his father. But the boy didn't know how to confirm his fears and hopes, and was terribly embarrassed. And now a blush has appeared all over my cheek. What happened? Naruto asked, sighing again, feeling in his gut exactly that conversation. Daisuke took a deep breath and blurted out. "Did you know my father?" He said it, and now come what may. "I could be wrong, but your father might have been Uchiha Itachi," the fair-haired man answered cautiously, glancing uncertainly at his student. "Was? So he died?" Daisuke asked, upset. He was afraid of this. Naruto didn't know what to do with himself. It was a very unpleasant feeling to upset a child with the news that the one he had been looking for so long had died. The man nodded sullenly. Daisuke sighed and forced a smile. If he suspected, then there was no need to hang his head. How does he know what his father was like? Maybe he was a bad person. "Don't worry too much," Naruto added, ruffling the boy's hair. "I'm an orphan too, and I didn't know anything about my parents, not even their names." "How is that?" The teenager was surprised. "You are the son of the fourth Hokage." "Yes, that's why they didn't tell me anything," Uzumaki nodded. "I was angry at everyone, I took revenge, and I really wanted to know what kind of people my parents were. And when I found out," Naruto waved his hand, "I thought that it would have been better not to know. I was incredibly sorry that they died, although I was happy to meet them." "Meet?" Daisuke was surprised. "Yes. It's no secret to anyone in Konoha that the fourth himself sealed the fox in me. He used his chakra and my mother's during the ritual, and gave their so-called projections, consisting of memory and information, the opportunity to tell me the secret of my birth. That's how I met them." "The fourth Hokage was an incredible shinobi," Daisuke said with admiration in his voice. "Yes, that's right," Naruto said with a bit of sadness. They were silent for a while, and the hero of the 5 nations decided to tell the boy a little about his father. "Itachi Uchiha was a genius. I heard that he graduated from the academy at 7, passed the Chunin exam at 10, and became a member of ANBU at 13. I don't know what he did when he left the village, but when I met him, he seemed like an amazing person. I respected him very much, even though I hated him." "Why did you hate him?" Daisuke was surprised. You seem to be an adult already and should understand. I won't tell you the whole story, you won't understand, but I will say that he committed a crime on orders, and became considered a missing nin," Naruto said, sighing once again. "No one knew this, and Itachi himself stubbornly ruined his reputation, joined the Akatsuki organization, and carried out their orders." "Akatsuki? That was a terrible organization. We were told that 10 of them could stand up to all the nations." The boy exclaimed, jumping to his feet. "Yes, even 2 of them could destroy the entire village, which actually happened once," Naruto nodded, "but Itachi was against such a policy, but he had no one to complain to, and he would not have done it anyway. And he carried out all the orders from the leader in good faith. Before his death, we talked. And I learned the real Itachi. He did everything for Konoha, and while he was alive, he protected our village from the attacks of Akatsuki. I consider him a hero, not a criminal." Naruto looked at his hands. He remembered how he fought Itachi's summoned soul during the Fourth War with Kabuto and Edo Tensei. Then he was even more convinced that Uchiha Itachi was truly a hero, much greater than Naruto himself. With just a few words, he managed to remind the blonde not to get cocky, and brought him back to the right path. If he hadn't warned Naruto then, who knows, maybe Uzumaki would have grown up to be a new criminal. And much more dangerous than the previous ones. "Someday I'll be able to tell you everything about him," Naruto added, "but don't think of your father as a weakling, a criminal, or a murderer." "I won't," Daisuke nodded seriously, "so that I don't hear about him." "Yes, by the way, they can say a lot about him, but don't listen to anyone." No one knew the real Uchiha Itachi except himself. The boy nodded and smiled shyly. Well, he learned a little about his father. True, it's not very flattering, but the fact that Sensei considers him a genius and a hero is much nicer. "By the way, did you awaken the Sharingan?" Naruto asked. "I don't know, he hasn't shown up yet," Daisuke shrugged. "Don't worry, it will definitely happen." Everything was calm until the evening. But as soon as it started to get dark, Naruto sensed strangers. The shinobi sighed. They wouldn't let him finish the mission peacefully. Toad Hermit Naruto summoned several clones and left them to collect natural energy. He quietly sent the other clones around the entire perimeter of the warehouse. If even one clone disappeared, Uzumaki would find out about it and would be able to come up with something. It had long been noted that Naruto improvises better than thinking ahead. Strategy is not his strong point. And so it happened. The bandits attacked one of the clones, and immediately received a Rasengan to the head from two neighboring clones. Isami attacked from the other side, Daisuke from the third, and I am from the fourth. "But these are Genins," the leader rejoiced, "kill them." But the Genins gave a worthy rebuff, but I am was the first to be hit hard, and the girl fell unconscious, but Naruto's clone caught her and carried her away from the battle. The remaining clones gradually flocked to the place of the skirmish. Only a couple remained, so as not to miss any sabotage by the bandits. The original was only watching for now. He wanted to let his students try their strength, and Kurama did the same, having climbed out again and taken physical form. "I think it's time," Naruto said, noticing how Isami fell to his knees. "Let's go kick their asses," the fox grinned bloodthirstily. Uzumaki only chuckled. Even though Kurama had become noticeably kinder, he still loved battles, and in them he really was a demon. Naruto had personally tested it on his own skin. The man entered the general melee, immediately knocking out two of the attackers. Kurama appeared right in the middle of the battle, waving his tails, from the bandits pressing on the two boys. The fox bared his teeth and growled menacingly. The criminals were scared and took a step back. Yes, the legends about the Kyuubi were still in circulation, and were considered some of the most terrible. In first place, of course, were the stories about the Fourth Shinobi War, as the most terrifying, thanks to the Edo Tensei technique. Although it lasted no more than a week, it was fast, cruel and merciless. Absolutely all of those who survived it became famous, and if not throughout the world, then at least in their countries. Isami, noticing the familiar red fur, could not stand it any longer and fell completely, unable to rise. Daisuke held on with his last strength, and fought in close combat with some particularly zealous opponent. The man was of average strength, but not timid, and was not afraid of the nine-tailed demon that appeared, but only began to fight more fiercely. But the dark-haired boy could follow all the movements, but did not always have time to respond. He missed the shurikens thrown by the man, which pierced the boy's left shoulder, but he did not even scream, but only hissed something through clenched teeth. The man may have been surprised until he looked into the boy's eyes. Scary eyes were burning there. Sharingan, and not a simple one, but a manjikyu. Horror crawled up the criminal's spine, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. The man even forgot that it was dangerous to look into the Sharingan, so he didn't even notice when he found himself in a powerful genjutsu. He spent much more than the usual 72 hours there. When Daisuke, out of habit, failed to hold the technique, the bandit collapsed, as if he had been mown down, with wide-open eyes and an empty look. The boy was afraid that he had killed him, but there was no time to check. He had to deal with others. With Naruto and Kurama joining the fight, the battle began to wane. The wounded were tied up and sent under the escort of clones to the customer, let him sort it out. They themselves remained. Naruto bandaged the wounds, healed the students a little, and put them all to bed. They were all tired today, and they needed to rest. And the Naruto clones could lead the night watch. Yes, this technique can be said to have become his calling card for a long time now. Daisuke had to use medical jutsu because he had strained his eyes from being unaccustomed to it and now he couldn't see anything at all. Uzumaki wasn't good at this, so Kurama treated him. Having completed all the medical procedures, Naruto lit a fire and, sitting down near it, began to watch the children. The man with hair the color of ripe wheat and incredibly blue eyes hoped that there would be no more attacks tonight. Naruto didn't even notice when he himself fell into a slumber. Let me clarify about the Manjikyu. Daisuke's mother died right before his eyes, which prompted the awakening of the Sharingan, and almost immediately the Manjikyu. But he forgot about it, because that was the body's reaction to stress. He just knew that his mother died and that's it. He forgot the incident itself, too. That's it. Chapter 6 Chapter 6 The Way Back. Naruto and his team guarded the warehouse for a week, but there were no more attacks. This upset everyone except the merchant himself. Having received their hard-earned money, the team headed back. "We'll check out Suna," Naruto said as soon as they left the town. "Why, sensei?" asked Diam. "I want to visit my friend," Naruto answered thoughtfully, glancing sideways at his students. The four shinobi moved quite quickly, and by evening they had already reached the sand village. At the entrance they were initially stopped, but after recognizing the man as an Uzumaki, they were allowed through without question. The blonde nodded calmly to the guards and headed towards the Kazekage building. "Gaara doesn't sleep much, so he's probably still working." And Naruto was right, the Kazekage was in his place, chasing the poor assistant around the entire building, if not the entire village. The girl already looks like Gaara himself, with the same bags under her eyes. "Hello." Naruto winked at the girl, and she looked at him with hopeful eyes, apparently completely tired. The man smiled and entered his friend's office. His genins followed him, carefully and trying not to be noticed. "Hello, Gaara," the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed greeted the Jinchuriki of the One-Tailed. "Naruto?" The Kazekage was surprised, tearing his gaze away from the pile of papers. After the war, when the statue of the heretic god, in which the Biju were sealed, was broken, all the tailed beasts were reborn. New vessels were found for them, and Naruto personally asked each beast to help his Jinchuriki. The Biju, who had become friends with Uzumaki during the war, agreed. But not all of them found Jinchuriki, and now some Biju lived peacefully in freedom, although they were, of course, hunted, but the beasts moved to hidden villages. And the shinobi of those villages protected the Biju, and in return they sometimes helped in some difficult missions. For example, the Four Tails, Son Goku, came to Konoha and helped them. And Gaara was sealed with Shikaku again, and this time their relationship improved significantly. Naruto nodded, sitting down on the windowsill. "We had a mission not far from here, so I decided to see you on the way back." "With us?" Gaara finally noticed that Uzumaki had not come alone. "Yes, they gave me a team of genin," Naruto smiled and winked at his students. "That's right," nodded a serious Gaara. "You too," Uzumaki sighed pretendingly, to which the Kazekage smiled. "Let's meet." The teenagers glanced nervously at each other. After all, it wasn't every day that you came to other Kage besides your own. Isami was the first to decide, and the others introduced themselves after him. Gaara looked at everyone critically and chuckled to himself. The students seemed to be all, if not children, then brothers of Naruto himself. They were so similar. Even in a short time, Uzumaki had already managed to change the students to match himself. Then the friends started chatting about nonsense, and Gaara kept glancing sideways at Daisuke, apparently noticing the resemblance to one of his former acquaintances. The Kazekage asked the genin about their teacher, how they liked him, whether they liked him. However, what was there to ask about? They had the hero of the 5 nations as their teacher, how could they not like that? which was confirmed by the teenagers, more enthusiastic than a muzzle. Yes, it's time for us to sleep, Naruto said after some time, and turning around, he simply couldn't find the words. They fell asleep, Gaara chuckled. At first the children listened to the conversation of their elders, but apparently the day's journey had taken a lot of their strength. The genin were sitting on a long, low sofa, but huddled close to each other. Ayam was sleeping in the middle, with her legs on Isami's lap and her head on Daisuke's lap. The boys themselves had quietly laid their heads on each other's shoulders. How cute, Naruto chuckled quietly, thinking about what to do with the guys. There was nothing to do. Gaara helped by summoning a small cloud of sand, lifting the genin up with it and transporting them through the air to the upper floor, where the restrooms were. Thank you, Gaara, Uzumaki smiled. You're welcome, go, you need to sleep too. Thank you again, but the Kazekage just waved his hand. In the morning, Team 7 woke up quite late. Naruto himself had woken up long ago, and was again sitting in the Kazekage's office, distracting him from all the paperwork, which the assistant was extremely grateful for. At first, the genins looked suspiciously at the unfamiliar room, themselves and their clothes. And not finding anything strange, they shrugged their shoulders and went out into the corridor. And where to go now? A strangely painted man with a painted face expressing extreme displeasure just walked along the corridor. Excuse me, Daisuke politely addressed the man, can you tell me where Uzumaki Naruto is now? Naruto is here? He raised his eyebrows, he's probably with Gaara. And who are you? We are his students, Isami responded as politely as possible, trying to smile in a friendly manner. They entrusted him with the genins? The man responded skeptically, baring his teeth, okay, let's go, I'll show you the way. Thank you. On the stairs, the shinobi met a raccoon dog and a nine-tailed fox, who seemed to have been sent for Isami, Daisuke, and Ayam, but had quarreled on the way and were now fighting. Shikaku also began to emerge into the real world, becoming a compact dog. It looked very comical, the eternally unperturbed Gaara, and his arms constantly folded on his chest, and the raccoon dog spinning at his feet, always making fun of everyone and, it seemed, never losing heart. Kankuro, and it was he, grabbed both Biju in his arms and calmly headed to his brother's office. The tailed one snapped, threatened, promised the guy terrible deaths, but he was deaf to all the words. Hey! Naruto, I brought your students. Kankuro entered the office, and noticing the blonde, he couldn't help but make a sarcastic remark. Oh, thank you! Shouted the hyperactive blonde, okay, it's time for us to go home. Thanks for taking us in, and we'll probably go. Wait, Naruto. You didn't say. Gaara showed emotions that were unheard of by others. He jumped up from his chair and rushed towards his friend, but the latter, laughing loudly, avoided Gaara's hands and, waving goodbye to his brothers, left. What's wrong with you? Kankuro asked, left alone with his brother. He didn't answer my question about whether he had a girlfriend. The red-haired Jinchuriki gritted his teeth in irritation. Kankuro laughed indecently loudly. That's what he answered you. Why not? Temari gave me an ultimatum after the war that she would soon move to Konoha. Why can't he say if he's dating anyone? Come on, little brother. Kankuro slapped the Kazekage on the shoulder, but couldn't resist, turned away and quietly, nastily, giggled, it feels like you're jealous. Idiot. Gaara growled. And Kankuro was once again overcome with laughter, which he simply could not suppress. Even if it does, what difference does it make to you? The puppeteer squeezed out through laughter. Interesting, Gaara muttered. Women have spoiled you, Kankuro sighed pretendingly and shook his head. Even the Kazekage's cold heart couldn't withstand the onslaught of feminine fluids. Naruto calmly walked out of the Kazekage's residence, followed by Kurama, waving his 9 tails, saying something sarcastic to his Jinchuriki. The genins followed the teacher and tried to form an opinion about the Kazekage and his brother with the strangely painted face. But they quickly spat and became interested in what the sensei hadn't told the Kazekage. There were many versions, and all different, but they weren't even close to the real one. The guys didn't even think about this topic. It was too early for them to think about such things. A couple of hours later, Team 7 met up with Team Taka. Sasuke, as always, was running ahead of everyone, sullen and irritable. Karen and Suigetsu were arguing about something, and Yugo was just in the clouds, pretending that he wasn't there at all. Sasuke! Naruto exclaimed, seeing his friend, to which he only rolled his eyes, but nodded. Are you coming back from a mission? We are too. Uzumaki continued his monologue. Apparently he didn't really need Sasuke for the conversation. Hello Naruto, Karen and Suigetsu approached the two old friends. The red-haired kunoichi smiled at the head of her clan. And Hozuki, as always, bared his teeth, revealing an even row of triangular teeth. The teenagers began to warm their ears in adult conversation. Daisuke looked at his possible uncle with interest, and did not know what to think about him. A lot was said about the Uchiha clan, and little was good. And the grumbling of the villagers behind Sasuke's back did not contribute to a normal opinion of this man. The remaining 2 days they all returned to the village in a friendly crowd. But as soon as they passed the Eternal Guards, a thunderous double cry rang out across half the village. Naruto! Chapter 7 Chapter 7 Everyday Life of Konoha Shinobi. Naruto. Two women quickly approached the named guy. A stately blonde with a magnificent bust, and you would not say that the woman is well over 50, and her best student. A girl with pink hair, tied with a ribbon of the village protector. What happened? Uzumaki asked innocently. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, the same blonde, looked critically at Naruto himself, and then at his students, and even noted with regret that they had no wounds. Completely disappointed, the female Hokage left for the residence. Did you want something, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked, mentally prepared for anything. Of course, you're coming with me. The girl responded, and grabbing her friend by the hand, she dragged him somewhere. Hey! Where are you dragging me? Naruto exclaimed, but did not resist. He knew that if he resisted, he could get hit on the head. You'll help me, the girl muttered, without stopping or turning around. Daisuke, come to my place this evening. Uzumaki's cry was heard as he disappeared around the corner. These two are always positive, Sasuke muttered and abruptly jumped off towards his house. Sasuke! Where are you going? Suigetsu exclaimed, he always runs away. The water spirit sighed with annoyance and also left. Yugo had already run off somewhere at the entrance to the village. So Karen was left alone at the gate with 3 genin, who didn't know what to think about their teacher and his friends. Let's go, I'll treat you to some ramen, the red-haired girl said. Is the love of ramen a family trait in the Uzumaki clan? Asked the inquisitive Ayam. No, I got addicted while they were trying to bring Naruto out of his prolonged depression, the girl laughed, so shall we go? Yes. All 3 exclaimed. So, how do you like Naruto-sensei? The red-haired kunoichi asked as all 4 of them began to eat their portions of ramen. He's cool, Isami replied, but I'll still be Hokage ahead of him. What pressure, Karen giggled. He knows a lot of techniques, Ayam shrugged. He told me about my father, Daisuke said quietly, staring stubbornly at his bowl of noodles. Karen glanced at the boy with interest and shuddered. Kuga was very similar to Sasuke of the time when he first appeared at Orochimaru, only Daisuke looked a little different. The girl decided to ask Naruto himself about it. So where are you dragging me? Naruto repeated his question for the umpteenth time. Yes, help me. Why are you acting like a little child? Sakura was tired of this constant interrogation. Yeah, I knew it, shadow clones. Okay, the blonde pulled his hand away and, making a seal, summoned 10 clones at once, and picked up Sakura in his arms. What wouldn't you do for an old friend, he grumbled. I'm not old. Sakura was indignant. Don't fidget, I'll drop you, Naruto warned. Yes, as you say, the girl responded sarcastically. About 5 minutes later, both were already there, with an escort of Naruto clones. What to do? Asked their original, putting the girl on her feet. So, here's the deal. And hell began for Uzumaki. He was chased all over Konoha, and a couple dozen more clones had to be called. Naruto had already regretted many times that he had agreed to be a witness at Sakura and Sai's wedding. He was harnessed to help like a draft horse. The blonde helped all day until the evening, and with incredible fatigue he dragged himself home. I'm home, Naruto muttered into the void. He walked into the darkness of the room, stretched, and was surprised to notice that Daisuke had come and fallen asleep on Naruto's own bed. The blonde grinned and covered the teenager with a blanket, let him sleep. The man himself went to the kitchen, and having boiled the kettle, but not having made himself tea, he thought hard, looking out the window. In the morning Daisuke woke up and stretched, he had slept well. The boy opened his eyes and spent about 5 minutes trying to figure out where he was. He remembered and, stealthily, went to the kitchen, where the light was on, although it had been light for a long time. "Sensei?" Daisuke called out to the thoughtful Naruto. "Ah? Woke up?" The man was distracted from his heavy thoughts and, turning to the student, smiled. Naruto, thinking about what he wanted to tell Daisuke, began to remember the past. And the vaguely remembered Itachi back in Konoha, their first meeting after the Uchiha left the village, and their subsequent meetings. He especially remembered that meeting just before Itachi's death. It was then that Naruto realized that he respected this guy very much. And then Pain's attack on Konoha happened, and after it, Naruto chatted with Kakashi about the fourth. Yamato Taicho heard this, but here is Kakashi's story about his team, himself, Minato, Rin and Uchiha Obito. No one knew about this. Hatake decided to repent, at least to his student. Then Uzumaki heard for the first time that not all Uchihas are the same, and that Obito was a black sheep among them, but Kakashi himself considered Obito the best representative of this clan. And Naruto became even more convinced that Itachi and Obito were quite similar in character, which only added respect to the former. Uzumaki sincerely regretted that both Obito and Itachi died. He wished he could meet them and talk to them. "Naruto-sensei." Daisuke called out to the blonde, who was lost in thought again. "What's wrong with you?" "I think too much," Naruto smiled. "Not like me, right?" Daisuke shrugged, he didn't know his teacher that well. "You know, I think Itachi would want his son to become a real shinobi." The black-haired boy raised his head and stared at the teacher with disbelief. "You're like an orphan, and you should have a guardian." "Yes," Daisuke nodded, not knowing what to think. "And also, I don't think Itachi would mind much if I became your guardian," Naruto added, an embarrassed blush on his cheeks looked wild. The same blush appeared on Daisuke's cheeks. "I don't know about, father, but I would definitely be happy," the absolutely embarrassed guy answered. "Then I'll make arrangements with the fifth today." "Okay?" After these words, a joyful smile blossomed on the boy's face. Not only would he be able to find out more about his father, but he would also learn a lot. "Sensei. What did you do with Sakura-san?" Daisuke asked when they had already left Naruto's house and were heading towards the Hokage's residence. "I helped her prepare for the wedding," Naruto responded gloomily, so that he would agree to help Sakura again. "This is great. Will there be a bachelor party?" the boy asked with shining eyes. "It's not in the cards for you anyway, you're still too young," the blonde grinned and patted him on the head. "It's interesting," Daisuke grumbled, trying to fix his messy hair. "And how was your assignment?" Tsunade asked, putting the report aside and being very happy about it. "Of course it's good. Any doubts?" Naruto asked with a smile, plopping down on the couch where Tsunade often slept in the evenings. "For what reason?" the woman chuckled, "and what else?" "Also, I wanted to adopt Daisuke." "Why?" Fifth was surprised. "He is Itachi's son," Naruto responded. "Itachi? Wouldn't it be better to give it to Sasuke?" "And imagine what a child will grow up to be with such an uncle," Naruto chuckled, throwing his head back and boring into the woman with his gaze. "Yes, Sasuke is still in bad standing with the village," Tsunade sighed. She herself saw both the potential and the strength of the Uchiha, but she had little trust in him, even she. "And I would like Daisuke to change his last name." "To Uchiha? You know that people grateful to you will do everything you ask," the woman sighed. "I know," Naruto grinned crookedly, he didn't like this blind devotion and tried to confirm his status as a hero. "Okay. My student's wedding is at the end of the week, and 2 days before that there's a bachelorette party and a bachelorette party, so I'll try to arrange everything before these drinking parties." "Thank you, Tsunade," Naruto smiled sincerely, getting up from the couch. "Don't forget to tell me about Sasuke's nephew." "Good. A shout was heard from the street, where Uzumaki had already managed to jump. No matter how much time passes, he will still be hyperactive, Tsunade said to herself and smiled. The woman was absolutely right, Naruto was not going to change anymore. Those years that passed by such a bright person as if in a fog were enough for him, almost turning him into a hermit. And not in the sense of the sage mode, but in the sense that he almost became a secretive loner. Uzumaki was in a hurry to get to the Uchiha quarter. He didn't know what he would tell his friend, but he simply had to tell him. "Hey, Sasuke!" Naruto shouted loudly as he passed the gates of his friend's house. "Don't shout, there's not a fire," a muffled voice was heard from somewhere in the depths of the garden. Few people knew that Sasuke loved plants, so his house acquired not only a beautiful garden with fruit plants, but also a small vegetable garden. The brunette was almost always there when he was not busy with missions. "I have a serious conversation with you." The blonde man walked along the Engawa, found himself in the courtyard, and approached his friend. "You and a serious conversation, that's something new," Sasuke chuckled, digging in the ground. "You're always making fun of me," Naruto grumbled, starting to help his friend. "And what did you want to tell me? Did you know Itachi has a son?" Naruto asked directly. "What?" The brunette turned sharply to his friend and looked at him with wide eyes. "I didn't know, then." "My student, Daisuke, he is your brother's son." "How did you guess?" Sasuke asked in a strangled voice. "Sharingan 1 and 2, he's very similar to Itachi and you," Naruto answered calmly. "And?" Uchiha was afraid to breathe, his older brother's legacy was so close, and Sasuke didn't know about it. "I'm adopting him," Naruto answered calmly. "Why you?" the brunette asked, offended. "They trust me more in the village." Sasuke lowered his head repentantly, he understood perfectly well that it was unlikely that they would trust him with a child. "You're right. Will you allow me to communicate with him?" "You still ask?" "You are his closest relative." "And I am just a guardian and a teacher," Naruto shrugged. Unexpectedly, Sasuke smiled timidly, and no less unexpectedly squeezed the blonde in his arms. "You're going to choke me," Naruto croaked, wondering if he'd broken his ribs. "Thank you," Sasuke whispered quietly. "Why are you so emotional?" "Be a man," Uzumaki chuckled to smooth over Sasuke's strange behavior. Sorry. I'm just glad I have a friend like you." "Well, you definitely got emotional," Naruto chuckled, "don't forget to teach your nephew how to use the Sharingan." "Of course," Sasuke whispered, watching his best friend leave. Uchiha was incredibly happy about these events. He had solid ground under his feet again. Now that he knew he had a nephew, Sasuke would no longer be physically able to do anything bad. What other example would he set for the teenager? And Naruto seemed to sense it, which is probably why he told him. And Naruto was walking through the village again, but this time he was heading to the training ground. Daisuke had told his teacher before entering the residence that he was going to training, and Isami and Ayam would probably be there too. So another grueling training session awaited them all. Kurama, in anticipation of it, had crawled out and was now brazenly perched on his Jinchuriki's shoulders. Chapter 8 Naruto couldn't train for long. Having created the usual 100 or so clones, the original settled down on a tree and fell asleep. About 3 hours later, the blonde hero fell to the ground and didn't even wake up. His students looked askance at the teacher with skepticism and continued training with clones. In fact, they also wanted to learn this, but Daisuke, who accidentally copied the technique with his Sharingan and tried to use it, summoned 5 clones. He called them back and almost collapsed from fatigue. And how can Uzumaki summon them in huge quantities? It was impossible to ask for now, and the 3 genin looked sadly at the sleeping teacher. However, they were not allowed to do this noble deed either. A nightmare began. Kurama, who also dozed off for a while, woke up from the fall and began telling the children the theory, immediately starting to practice. The students simply crawled away from the training ground. Daisuke walked slowly. Naruto-sensei had said that he would become his guardian, but no one had cancelled the teenager's stay in his house. The boy shrugged his shoulders. How long had it been since he had rushed home to his mother, to a ready dinner and a warm smile? And for what sins had his mother fallen so seriously ill? He didn't know the answer, and preferred not to think too much about it. "Hello," a quiet voice was heard from the darkness. The boy suddenly raised his head and jumped back. You never know who was hiding there. A tall brunette stepped into the light of the lantern and chuckled, his black eyes shining with approval. "I am Uchiha Sasuke, probably your uncle," the man said, looking at the boy with interest. "Maybe? The relationship hasn't been confirmed yet," the man chuckled again. The boy only looked at him skeptically. Uzumaki had already given out a completely edited version of the Uchiha clan's history, and he hadn't kept quiet about the clan dojutsu either. Kurama, who wasn't too fond of the Uchiha, had also dropped something, but he had obediently told the genin, who were captivated by the story, about the battle between the great Madara and Hashirama. The children had completely stopped being afraid of the Kyuubi, except for its training. Daisuke also chuckled and activated his Sharingan. Apparently a DNA test is not needed," Sasuke noted, although it is necessary. The boy looked firmly into his relative's eyes. "I want to make sure." "As you say," the man smiled cheerfully. "Tima, leave the child alone, he's tired and wants to sleep," a completely drunk voice was heard behind the guy. "Dobe, where did you manage to get drunk?" Sasuke asked in surprise, looking at his blonde friend. "Just now," Naruto responded and staggered. "And so you decided to take a child into your care?" Uchiha sneered and narrowed his eyes. The child himself accepted the teacher's condition with Olympian calm. "It feels like I'm drinking nonstop," the blonde man was offended. "It's all because of the harmful influence of my teachers and parents." Having said this, Uzumaki jumped quite straight and successfully onto the nearest roof, heading towards the house. Both brunettes sighed in unison. "Let's go, I'll see you out," Sasuke said, moving forward first. "You don't mind if I talk to you, do you? Itachi was my brother after all, even though he wasn't worthy of a man like him." "Sasuke-san," the man winced at these words, but did not object. "Tell me about your father. He was always a genius. I just always looked at his back. Dad always compared us, but I didn't hate Itachi. No matter what, we are brothers. Maybe I was a little jealous, but I tried to at least catch up." "He was that strong?" Daisuke was surprised. Everything came very easily to him, and apparently in revenge fate put him before a difficult choice. He was a good and kind person who did everything for the village. It's a pity that I understood this only after his death. How did he die? A new question sounded. Sasuke sighed and looked at Luna, hoping to find in her the strength to continue the story. "I killed him, although no. He was killed by the disease, and he exposed himself to my blows. And it seems he was just happy that he died from my hand," the man sighed heavily. "Why did you kill him?" The boy's heart sank, but he remembered his promise to Naruto-sensei to never judge Itachi, and he decided to extend this to Sasuke as well. The man approached a low apartment building. Daisuke led his uncle into the apartment and offered him some tea. Sasuke nodded and went inside, looking around with interest. The most interesting thing was that he lived in the same building, and how could he not have noticed that he was almost an exact copy of his brother? The relatives settled down in the small kitchen. Sasuke sat and stared blankly at his mug, thinking about how to explain the essence of the fratricide. "I already said that fate gave my brother a difficult choice. Family or village? The Uchiha were planning a rebellion, and to prevent a civil war, Elder Danzo," the man visibly winced at these words, gave the order to the Anbu fighter Uchiha Itachi to wipe out his entire clan. The boy's black eyes found the same black, indifferent ones in fear. But this was only a facade. Behind the stone wall of which hid old pain and suffering. Itachi remained loyal to the village and carried out the order. "He didn't kill only me. He was able to kill his father and mother, but he couldn't kill his beloved brother." The mask cracked, and all the suppressed pain spilled out. Sasuke barely held back from shamefully crying out loud. And it seemed to him that he was already cured. "He made me hate him, prepared the ground for his own death." Sasuke smiled bitterly. "He's a great man, not like me." The man finished the half-cooled liquid in one gulp and said goodbye to his nephew, quickly going to his floor. The man wanted to get drunk like Naruto, but he knew that nothing good would come of this idea. However, the body thought differently, and while the owner was lost in his thoughts, his legs were already carrying him towards the Uzumaki house. Uchiha persistently knocked on his friend's door, and he crawled out 5 minutes later. It seemed he had gotten even drunker. "What's wrong with you?" Sasuke exclaimed, brazenly walking inside and slamming the door behind him so hard that the glass rattled. "Today is the day of Jiraiya's death," Naruto deigned to explain, and added, "and Itachi." Damn. Sasuke closed his eyes, and he was still racking his brains over why he felt so bad today. Uzumaki smiled knowingly and pulled out an unopened bottle of sake from somewhere in his sleeve and handed it to his friend. Sasuke drained it almost mechanically, without even noticing the taste. But he felt the hot liquid slowly descending down his esophagus, slowly settling in his stomach, and immediately his head was filled with lightness. The friends spent the whole night sitting in the kitchen of Uzumaki's apartment, chatting about past exploits, deaths, Itachi, Jiraiya, Team 7, everything. They hadn't communicated normally for a long time, but their friendship wasn't going to break so easily, even after so many years. The brunette and the blonde always understood each other with half a word, with half a glance. They even felt comfortable being silent, but you can't really be silent with Naruto. However, today a lot was said by Uchiha. Uzumaki mostly grinned understandingly and sympathetically, and Sasuke was once again amazed by this incredible ability of his friend to make people happier with just one look. Now Uchiha understood why girls had been chasing Naruto in droves for the last 7 years. And not just fans, but specifically with the goal of lassoing an eligible bachelor with the prospect of becoming Hokage soon. Uzumaki himself was now pulling the strap, and was in no hurry to become Hokage. He was already Tsunade's confidant, and she was slowly teaching him how to run things like a village ruler. Naruto understood what a bureaucratic hassle this was, and that's why he wasn't eager to take up the post. "I've waited so many years, I'll wait some more," was his main argument. By the way, Sasuke was already quite drunk, which as a shinobi was not allowed, but it was possible if it was in memory of his brother. The bachelor party is coming soon. Naruto groaned in resignation. He felt like he would be forced to prepare for half of this event again. "Do you have a girlfriend?" Sasuke suddenly asked, thinking about the fact that Naruto had never actually seen a girl in a romantic relationship. "You too," Naruto muttered. "Who else?" Gaara, the blonde answered briefly and succinctly, and the brunette giggled. "So is there? And if I say yes?" Uzumaki raised his light eyebrow, or is expected to. "As your best friend," Sasuke began pompously, "I will simply have to find out who it is." The brunette burst out laughing, completely forgetting about the late hour. "And you?" Naruto smiled like a fox. "No," Sasuke noted distantly, and was noticeably upset after realizing that he was no longer a boy. "We'll find it," the blonde waved his hand, "and now, my dear friend, it's time for us to sleep." The brunette silently agreed, got up from the table, threw off his simple equipment, remaining in only his pants, and collapsed on Uzumaki's bed. The owner of the bed watched his friend in surprise, but said nothing. He undressed himself and, approaching the bed, said, "Move, Sleeping Beauty, you are not alone here." Sasuke shifted and immediately fell asleep, not even paying attention to the fact that Naruto had violated the man's personal space. However, when did Naruto ever respect it? The man woke up with a headache and a terrible thirst. Kurama, who crawled out of his cage, spent half the morning being sarcastic and pestering both his Jinchuriki and his unbalanced friend, whose eyes were already spinning with the Sharingan, but Uchiha made no attempt to kill the Bijou in a terrible way. The chapter is quite short, but I promised several continuations per day, so I think the size of the chapter will pay off with the number of subsequent chapters. Chapter 9 And the next morning there was an official funeral of these two undoubtedly great ninjas. Naruto and Sasuke were absolutely serious, and it would be very difficult to believe that these two strongest ninjas drunkenly mourned their teacher and brother at night. Tsunade, too, was never seen by anyone except at the official ceremony, not even Shizune. The new generation either did not know these ninjas or did not remember them. Therefore, the children were respectfully silent, and tried to make serious faces, like their mentors and parents. Uzumaki and Uchiha went together to a distant forbidden training ground to solve all internal problems with the help of a familiar fight. For a long time the air shook from the encounters of the most powerful techniques, but soon this fight ended. Naruto and Sasuke simply lay next to each other and looked at the sky, quietly talking, recalling with a sober head the events of their lives, where Sannin and Uchiha Itachi figured in one way or another. "Do you remember how I rushed at him in that hotel?" Sasuke asked, smiling nostalgically. "Kami, how stupid we all were." "Yes, and we thought that we could at least scratch Itachi," Naruto grinned, "and Ero Sannin came in time. Maybe Itachi wasn't going to kill us, but Kisame was." "Disgusting guy," Uchiha chuckled, and Naruto laughed quietly. Now these were bright memories, all the tears and pain were left outside Naruto's house. And the men spent the whole day at the training ground, chatting, laughing and joking. It's almost impossible to be sad with Uzumaki, he can bring anyone out of depression, especially his best friend. "Hey, Sasuke-kun," Suigetsu suddenly appeared and drawled sarcastically, "are you going to take on a mission?" The white-haired former Foggy was surprised to notice the unusual peace on the team leader's face. This is a very rare phenomenon, which, unfortunately, is impossible to capture. "Get lost, Suigetsu," Sasuke waved his hand with a weak movement of his wrist, without even looking at his comrade. The white-haired man snorted resentfully and went off to sulk at the bad Uchiha. The very next day, Tsunade called Naruto and handed the local hero the completed guardianship documents, which indicated both relatives and a change of surname. There were very few Uchiha left, and the only men among them were Sasuke and Daisuke. The rest of those who belonged to this clan were born Uchiha who had long since married. And due to these circumstances, they had no right to be in the clan. The blonde studied the official-looking papers in detail, muttered something under his breath and snorted, but tore himself away from reading, nodded to Fifth, and disappeared in an unknown direction. Although it is not difficult to guess where he went, all he has to do now is pick up his adopted son until the latter comes of age. Daisuke was found in Sasuke's garden. The boy also became interested in plants and helped his uncle. It seems they got along, flashed through Uzumaki's mind, and a slightly sly smile blossomed on his lips. Naruto knew perfectly well that Sasuke had to have an incentive to keep himself within limits, and his nephew was quite suitable for this role. The new family spent the rest of the day in the garden. Naruto may not have been keen on plants, but eating vegetables grown in his own garden is much tastier than store-bought. That's a fact. The blonde was taught to eat healthy by the Tsuchikige's granddaughter, Kuratsuchi, who was horrified by the fact that Uzumaki never ate normally. "How are you still alive?" she exclaimed then, and immediately rushed like a whirlwind through the shops and prepared a bunch of healthy and nutritious food. Uzumaki resisted, because not all the food served was tasty, but under the menacing gaze of his friend he had to eat. And then he got used to it and got used to it. "Sasuke! Naruto! Are you here?" A very familiar shout was heard from the entrance. The brunette and the blonde froze in horror. "Nightmare, it's Sakura, she'll start helping her again," Naruto shook, turning around in a hunted manner towards the gate to his friend's house. "Maybe not, I certainly wouldn't help," Sasuke answered, and wiping his hands on a towel, he went out to the girl. "Calm down, Naruto," Sasuke chuckled cheerfully, noticing the way the blonde was looking at him. "It's just an invitation to a bachelor party." Uzumaki immediately relaxed and calmly leaned back on the green grass. Daisuke chuckled quietly. "Can I go?" he asked, already figuring that neither Naruto nor Sasuke would be able to keep an eye on him that day. Although he didn't need supervision. "You're still young," Naruto noted, "I'd better leave you to train with Kurama." "I don't mind, I'll train you." The fox cub immediately appeared, sitting on the Jinchuriki's chest, and brazenly tickling his face with its tails. "Ugh, Kurama, get this hair off me," Naruto sneezed, the hairs immediately getting into his nose. Kyubi giggled softly and, pushing off harder, jumped into Daisuke's arms. Naruto was about to burst into an angry, unprintable tirade, but remembered that there was a child among them and didn't say a word. But with his gaze he promised his red-haired friend Egyptian executions. Kurama demonstratively turned away and twitched his two tails, as if to say, "What do I care about your threats?" The whole crowd stayed overnight at Sasuke's. Naruto remembered the mess from the night of drinking that hadn't been cleaned up, and was horrified. He would have to clean his apartment, it had been a dump for too long, and not the apartment of a single man. Naruto managed to think about all this before falling asleep. And in the morning the blonde jumped up from the futon allocated to him, got dressed and rushed home at great speed. He called a dozen clones and started cleaning. He made it to the evening, and thus to the bachelor party. He quickly washed himself, changed into normal clothes and ran out of the house. One of the clones managed to cook a light dinner, so Naruto also grabbed a box of food. "Made it!" exclaimed the restless hero, falling right at the feet of two Uchihas. The elder only raised an eyebrow, but the younger one recoiled a little. "Here's this for you, when you get hungry, eat it," the man held out the box. "Thank you," the boy whispered very quietly, having not received food prepared especially for him for a long time. "If anything, do you know where I live?" The teenager nodded. "Then you spend the night there, and Sasuke and I are here. I don't want to disgrace myself with my drunken appearance." Sasuke turned away and Daisuke noticed that his uncle's shoulders were shaking slightly. His uncle was laughing at Naruto brazenly. Although what he hadn't seen during this time, that this wouldn't embarrass him anymore. "Then we'll go." "Don't be bored," the blonde ruffled his adopted son's hair. "If anything, I have scrolls with techniques, you can take them." And he jumped off somewhere. Sasuke sighed resignedly, also ruffled his nephew's hair, and also jumped off somewhere. Daisuke sighed in resignation, and what a habit it was to always ruffle his hair. Left alone, the boy thought about his uncle's story. He wanted to condemn, to blame him for the death, but he couldn't. Daisuke saw how bad the man felt, how much he regretted killing his brother. Only for these feelings, the feelings he showed, the boy forgave his uncle. Then he thought that he didn't care about the past, the main thing is that he now has an uncle and a guardian. There is something to be proud of, especially that these men are the strongest shinobi in almost the entire world. Chapter 10 I'm terribly ashamed that I didn't post the chapter yesterday. Forgive me, I just didn't know what to write, and I was also lazy, and I wasn't at any bachelor/bachelorette parties, and who knows what's going on there. Naruto carefree jumped on the roofs towards the entertainment district, and Sasuke caught up with him in half a minute. Now they were moving almost in sync, shoulder to shoulder. On the neighboring roofs, the rest of the guests were also running and jumping to another roof. The place where the bachelor and bachelorette parties were held was nearby, the neighboring buildings were completely bought out, and the rest, knowing about this grandiose drinking bout, preferred to sit at home today. And here are the buildings, two two-story houses, quite similar to each other, although the owner of these places is the same, so nothing surprising. Friends and acquaintances of Sakura and Sai have already gathered near both buildings, and this is almost half of Konoha, although mainly young people were here. Of the older ones there were only the team teachers, whose representatives were also invited. Oh. Naruto, Sasuke, hi, a beautiful blonde with long hair, habitually gathered in a high ponytail, approached the two friends. The girl was dressed in a beautiful dress that suited her eyes very well. "Ino, you look wonderful," Naruto smiled his best smile. Sasuke chuckled approvingly next to him, also casting an interested glance at the girl's figure. Quite a few years had passed since they became genin. A whole 10 years, and among their peers, almost all were already exemplary family men. Shikamaru has long since taken Temari into his custody. They are already babysitting a small dark-haired toddler, with a character completely like his daddy, which really pisses off the former Pescanea. Choji, Kiba, even Shino already have wives. Niji and Hinata continued the Hyuga dynasty. And no matter how much a girl loves Naruto, you can't go against the clan. Now Sakura and Sai have decided to get married. There are very few unmarried people left: Naruto, Sasuke, Ino, Karen, Suigetsu, Yugo, Tenten, and a couple more people. Sasuke-kun. A red-haired girl in glasses hung on the brunette's neck. Her usual outfit was also replaced by a nice blouse and skirt. The girl even transformed, and in the evening twilight she seemed incredibly beautiful. "Karen, let go," Uchiha asked extremely politely, realizing that if he started getting irritated and yelling at the girl, then she would definitely not leave him alone. And she would hang on his neck out of spite. "No way," the girl said, syllable by syllable. Sasuke looked at his friend, mentally asking him for help, but the famous blonde grinned cheekily and was in no hurry to help. "Where's your savior syndrome?" Sasuke thought sarcastically, making a note to himself to take revenge on Naruto if the opportunity arises. "Hey, Karen, leave our marble statue alone, come to us instead," Sakura saved the situation, approaching the group. "Yes, you're right," the red-haired girl nodded, squeezing the brunette especially hard at the end. "I see you're still popular, Sasuke-kun, where there's a bride, there's a groom." Sai approached the sworn friends, smiling his stupid smile, which he now used as a weapon of mass destruction. "Congratulations," Sasuke said with visible mockery, "soon you will become a family man." "True," Sai nodded, "but you two will remain bachelors." "Maybe you are gay after all?" "Who knows," Naruto grinned, throwing his arm over Sasuke's shoulder. "I see," the pale-faced guy raised his eyebrows in surprise. Sasuke bared his teeth, and Sai had to retreat empty-handed. No matter how much he tried to stir up rumors that Uzumaki and Uchiha were gay, all his efforts were wasted on the guy's impenetrable mask. They had learned that all of Sai's taunts should be answered in kind or completely ignored. The guys looked at each other and grinned, however, how easy it was to get rid of Sai. The friends got tired of hanging around outside. And they decided to go inside. Naruto kissed Karen on the cheek again, which the girl didn't even pay much attention to, and Sasuke winked at Ino, who was standing next to Sakura. "And here you are." Kiba approached his friends, Shikamaru lazily trailed behind him, how the latter even managed to come is unknown. "Waited?" Sasuke grinned. "You are so problematic," Shika yawned widely. The party was just beginning, and it was still quiet and calm. Kakashi was sitting at a table in the corner by the wall, lost in the world of printed letters, and Guy was clearly bored next to him. Lee was hanging around somewhere, and Konohamaru was sighing alone at the table. Yamato Taishu was bored at the bar, hypnotizing his glass. "What's so boring?" Naruto asked, taking in the whole scene, "and why isn't Yamato sitting with Kakashi? Did you have a fight?" Sasuke asked sarcastically, hinting at Sai's recent questions. The blonde chuckled. It sounded plausible. However, no one was allowed to get bored. Naruto pounced on his sensei, and snatching the book from his hands, Sasuke practically dragged Tenzu by the scruff of the neck to the table. Kiba gathered the men who had scattered around the rooms, and also dragged them to the table, which had already grown significantly in size due to the fact that Naruto did not like that they would sit at separate tables, and the whole friendly company put them together. Kakashi quietly mourned his book, which was hidden behind 7 seals, or rather behind the seal on Naruto's hand, or Sasuke's. Kakashi still did not understand where his teacher's son had shoved the poor, battered, come paradise. The silver-haired Jonin was consoled by Guy and Yamato. The others gathered and the fun began. Lee was rattling around on stage, creating the usual background noise. Toasts were being made, and snacks were being eaten. Someone suggested a drinking game, the others agreed unanimously, and off we went. Naruto remembered only separate fragments of the evening night morning. With Ero-sanin as a godfather, you can learn even more, but he had a hard time. Uzumaki was completely unlucky in gambling. And that meant he had to drink more. Lee also got drunk, but Yamato tied him up with flexible wood and left him to watch the others by the wall. The teachers themselves also had a lot of fun. In such an informal setting, communicating with subordinates and former teammates, the men got really wild. Yamato, Guy, and Kakashi played the game of who will outdrink whom for the umpteenth time. Tenzo was winning. However, Naruto had long since realized that of this group of men, meaning senseis, the most alcohol-resistant was the former ANBU member with the wood style. What happened next was simply cut out of the memory of the hero of Konoha, but he knew for sure that something obscene was happening. Then Naruto found himself in the freezing water, from which he noticeably sobered up, and started a conversation with Sasuke and Sai, who were nearby. Yeah, these are friends, they don't part even when drunk. Then, the men, having sobered up a bit, started playing children's games, like tag. It's a good thing they didn't return to the village, otherwise they would have gotten it from drunk Tsunade for damaging Konoha's property. Suddenly, equally drunk girls came out onto the shore of the lake, giggling about something. "Oh!" Sakura exclaimed, as if from a sight, and immediately found Sai with her eyes. The guy immediately pulled himself together, made a stony face and moved towards his bride. The girl immediately hung on him and pulled her legs up, not forgetting to giggle drunkenly. The rest suffered the same fate. The girls started to pester the guys, even Kakashi got it. Shizune, who forgot for today that she didn't like alcohol, started to quickly say something to the Jonin in the eternal mask. The man staggered and leaned on Shizune's shoulder, where a weak woman could hold the double weight of the shinobi. Both fell and laughed, remaining lying on the grass and continuing their conversation, interrupted by laughter. Naruto picked up Karen and ran off with her somewhere. Sasuke didn't care about his friend's disappearance. He was completely busy talking to Ino. Among the girls she looked the most sober, but she didn't stray from the group. Two different celebrations on the same occasion merged into one. The people remained on the shore, sleeping all in a heap, except for those who managed to sneak out early. Among them were Naruto, Karen and a few others. The blonde woke up at Sasuke's house. Apparently the body's installation that he was returning here today worked. The girl was sleeping next to him, curled up in a ball, and Naruto himself was hugging her from behind around the waist. The blonde stood up, trying to remember what they had done yesterday when they left. But nothing special came to mind. However, Naruto was absolutely sure that there was nothing reprehensible. They had slept in their clothes. Uzumaki crept into the kitchen and began to prepare breakfast. He was already completely sober, so everything was clear and in order in his head. He needed to make coffee, a light snack with it, breakfast chicken soup for Sasuke, breakfast for Daisuke. Great, Naruto dealt with it quickly, and sitting at the table, waited for Karen to appear in the room. Naruto? I thought I was at Sasuke's, and here's the girl. Sleepy, rumpled, but also quite cheerful. He has, the blonde nodded, but I have a pupil, I couldn't show up at home in an indecent state. Where is Sasuke? Karen was surprised, sitting down opposite the guy. Who knows, Naruto shrugged, he'll wake up and crawl back. You're cruel to him. And you're such wonderful friends. Even though he is my friend, sometimes he really pisses me off, Uzumaki muttered. Karen laughed quietly. Breakfast continued in silence. The girl, already leaving, thanked Naruto very much for not letting her do something stupid at night. Otherwise, who knows what a night trip to the lake would have turned out to be. Uzumaki only smiled at this. He himself did not know why he left, and even dragged Karen with him. The day had begun, the workdays. Many of them were still recovering from the drinking for a long time and took a forced vacation. The poor Genin and Anbu had to pay for all these Chunin Jonin. Tsunade was in a complete funk. Not only did she show up to work drunk, but Shizune wouldn't let her have a drink or get herself together, although she could use a couple of glasses of sake. Another terrible day was approaching, promising to be no less a drinking binge. How the Konoha shinobi's liver would withstand it remained to be seen. Chapter 11 The girls, having seen the men off with their eyes, also went to their establishment. It was clean and cozy inside, but it didn't last long. Tsunade, at first, made toasts, which greatly contributed to the rapid intoxication of the others. It became noticeably more cheerful. The girls and women came to life, began to chat and laugh intensely. Someone suggested dancing, of course everyone agreed. They turned on the music, and the female half of Konoha rushed to the dance floor. Those who remained at the table were either those who couldn't dance or those who drank, for example, Tsunade. The female Hokage had not had a reason to get drunk for a long time, so she called the waiter and ordered a whole row of sake from him, which she drank for the rest of the time. Sakura, Ino, and Temari were also sitting at the table and talking about something, although it wasn't hard to guess what. The only married lady in the group was telling her two friends the wisdom of marriage. What to do, what not to do. And she was simply sharing funny stories. Hinata's husband came for her almost immediately and took her home. She had a curfew, which irritated the woman terribly. But her natural gentleness did not allow her to say everything she thought about all these rules and words. Hinata said goodbye to her friends and left, casting an extremely sad look at those who remained. They also looked sympathetically after her, but they could not do anything about it, and continued to have fun. Ino also suggested drinking games. The girls had to tell something about themselves, an embarrassing moment, their first kiss, or something similar. And those who refused had to drink a huge glass of various contents. Spin the bottle wasn't interesting, so they changed it. It turned out to be fun. Hey, Sakura. Ino was now spinning the bottle, and it pointed at the blonde's eternal rival. Tell me, have you kissed Naruto or Sasuke? The other girls started making noise. I don't, the girl smiled, but they do. Remember that incident at the academy? Certainly. You'll forget something like that. Well, it was a repetition, and also accidental. We were on some mission, and that's when it happened. Oh, girls, it was so romantic, a kiss under a waterfall, the pink-haired girl sighed dreamily. Maybe they really are gay? Karen asked, trying to remember if she had ever seen Uchiha in the company of a girl. Of course not. Haruno was still indignant. After that incident they didn't come closer than a meter to each other, they didn't talk, and Naruto talked Jiraiya into something, and they disappeared somewhere together. I wonder where, Ino drawled. For women, Tenten said no less thoughtfully, but firmly. How do you know? Was heard from all sides at once. I saw it. Naruto, apparently, just after that incident, always followed Jiraiya, and each time he returned terribly pleased. Well, it's good that our hero is of normal orientation, Ino giggled. Let's drink to our hero Naruto and his faithful, but terribly harmful friend, the ice-cold Sasuke. Let's drink. The girls grabbed their glasses and drank the contents in one gulp, and immediately burst out laughing. And let's drink, said Tenten, noticing how Ino was pouring new portions, to Sakura. For the fact that she was able to make a man out of Sai, and not only that, she managed to get him for her eternal use. Let's congratulate Sakura. You're great. Ha ha ha. Congratulations. They drank again and laughed again. There were other toasts, and other games. Various funny and ambiguous stories. Tsunade also generously shared stories about the three Sannin, how they drank together, and what they did drunk. With that famous story, when Tsunade almost killed Jiraiya for peeping, it turned out that Orochimaru and Jiraiya went to the wrong section of the bathhouse. They were bored, and they came to Tsunade, together, but only Jiraiya got into trouble. All this happened at night, and of course drunk, Ero-sanin himself, with Naruto's help this nickname became very firmly established in the everyday life of the Konoha people, although he suffered, but the woman quickly healed him. So they stayed in the same bathhouse, and what happened next, history is silent. Tsunade admitted that she does not remember. The girls liked the story and decided to go for a swim too, but no one wanted to go to the baths, and Karen said that they could go to the lake outside the village. The red-haired girl, as a first-class censor, felt perfectly well that the guys were there too, but she kept silent. The girls ran out onto the shore laughing and noticed the boys. Sakura immediately went to her fiancé, and all the girls found a partner. Ino remained standing aside, watching the boys with surprise and interest. Kakashi fell with Shizune, Naruto dragged Karen somewhere, and Ino was left alone and sat down on some log, still watching her friends. And why are you sitting alone? The blonde heard a familiar voice, from which all the ice had gone, leaving only mockery. No? The girl smiled slyly, turning to the man who had approached. It's dangerous, he answered calmly and sat down next to her. So you mean you're going to protect? Will. Thank you, the girl leaned over and kissed the brunette on the cheek. In the darkness it was difficult to see the satisfied smile that slid across the lips of the dark-haired guy. Let's have a drink? He touched his fingers to the tattoo on his hand, and a bottle and glasses appeared from the seal. Naruto is a treasure trove of information and extravagant ideas, he chuckled at the blonde's slightly stunned look. The girl giggled and took the full glass from the Uchiha's hands. I won't drink to Sakura and Sai. Then, Sasuke grinned slyly and glanced at Ino. To us? For us, Yamanaka answered uncertainly, clinking the rim of her glass with Sasuke's. We drank and continued our leisurely conversation. You've changed, Sasuke, the girl said thoughtfully. Perhaps, the man shrugged, looking at the surface of the lake. A rather comfortable silence hung in the air. The people gradually dispersed into pairs, some were already sleeping right on the ground, some, like Sasuke and Ino, were sitting on logs provided by Yamato. The former ANBU man himself had disappeared somewhere. Ino, Uchiha quietly called to the thoughtful girl. Will you date me? What? The girl was in complete confusion. Yes, in the academy they all ran after Sasuke. Having become genin, it was entertainment for Ino to pester Sakura. However, having grown up, the girl threw all these thoughts aside and practically forgot about Sasuke. During the war, she had no time for love, but after the war, she no longer even thought about winning the heart of the last Uchiha. And then such questions. I will, Ino answered, smiling. Why not? Sasuke is the head of the clan, a strong shinobi, handsome, and now not so cold. Also, from Sakura's words, Ino knew that Sasuke is also caring, only he will veil his care so that an outsider would not even think that it was her. Rather, they will condemn her for her cold attitude towards her comrades. Ino had always been determined and combative. And now, taking a deep breath, as if before diving into the water, she approached the brunette and kissed him carefully. For now, on the cheek. Sasuke hugged her in response, pulling her closer and throwing one side of his jacket over the girl's back. Thank you, Yamanaka smiled and gratefully lowered her head onto his shoulder. A little later, they both found themselves on the ground, and, using a log as a support for their backs, they sat hugging each other and fell asleep. Chapter 12 The fun days were over, and the usual gray everyday life began. Many shinobi ran away from the village on missions, including Naruto and his students. He barely managed to get another normal mission from Tsunade. The woman was already tired of proving something to the local hero, so she simply waved her hand and handed the blonde a pretty decent C-rank mission. Daisuke was getting used to living with someone else. And he was simply amazed. Both Naruto and Sasuke turned out to be very cheerful people. Not a single day passed without these two starting some kind of childish argument, which, as expected, ended in a fight. A couple of times it came to the hospital, where both men received a scolding from Sakura, and a slap on the back of the head from Tsunade. In addition to watching his guardians, Daisuke began training with both of them. Naruto taught him everything, and Sasuke taught him how to use the Sharingan. Despite the fact that the teenager already had a manjikyu, he didn't really know how to use it, and his uncle warned him about the danger of going blind someday. Isami and Iam also worked hard, improving their combat ability and teamwork. The latter was already at a good level, which did not prevent the kids from improving it even more. Two guys were attacking a nimble red fox, who with a mocking laugh playfully dodged all attacks. The brunette stopped, quickly made seals, inhaled more air into his lungs and exhaled a huge ball. The platinum blonde did not lose his head, and, being literally a few seconds late, also made seals and exhaled a dense stream of air, which wove into the fire, blowing it to incredible sizes. But the fox was not affected by the attack, he only snorted mockingly and extinguished the combined attack with his 9 tails. Weak, the unusual fox pronounced his verdict. Kurama-san, you are very demanding, the only girl present said somewhat whinily. And what will you do in a real fight? Where the enemy will not spare you, on the contrary, will try to kill you quickly, the fox scolded the girl. The brunette frowned, but kept silent, understanding and accepting the truth of the words. Their world is always cruel, and if you don't kill, you will be killed. No matter how hard Uzumaki Naruto tried to change people's hearts, the age-old foundations did not want to fall away painlessly, and battles to the death continued in the world. Another hour of grueling training with an unusual teacher, and the 3 teenagers lay tiredly on the ground. Kurama made a snarky comment about their skills, threw in a few more barbs, and, waving his tails, disappeared into orange smoke. You know, Iam said thoughtfully, I'm very happy that they appointed Naruto-sensei as our teacher. Who wouldn't be happy when they have the hero of the village as a teacher? Isami responded mockingly. Daisuke just chuckled meaningfully. Hey, Dai! Someone shouted from the fence surrounding the training ground. Daisuke winced slightly, he didn't like the abbreviation of his name, and stood up. Hello. We have training. Haven't you forgotten? Uncle Daisuke smiled slightly. You'll forget it here, the guy muttered, and where's Naruto-sensei? He's on a date, Sasuke answered with an indescribable intonation and facial expression. Daisuke chuckled cheerfully. Naruto constantly complained about all these pestering with questions about whether he had a girlfriend, that the Uchiha almost did not howl. And often they simply ran away from the enraged Uzumaki to the clan's training ground, the only one of its kind, because only it remained in its original form after all the destruction of the village. And the clan's territory itself was outside of Konoha, so it did not suffer much. It's a pity that there are no people to live in this clan. A whole block for 2 Uchiha is somehow too much. Which the already emboldened Daisuke liked to point out, and not only he, but also Naruto. Well, these two were always squabbling and arguing, but they never stopped being an incredibly powerful and well-coordinated tandem. Their fame thundered to this day, and in every hidden village, even dogs knew Uzumaki and Uchiha by sight. Uchiha didn't know whether to be angry or happy that his friend had found himself a sweetheart. It was Karen, simple and understandable, like a stool. She and Sakura were of the same breed, both hiding their true feelings behind a mask of rudeness. And if Sakura took it out on Naruto for Sasuke's dismissal, then Karen viciously beat, morally or physically, it doesn't matter, Suigetsu, who had long since learned to hide from the omnipresent censor girl. Speaking of the last 2 members of Taka's former team, Suigetsu couldn't live in peace and was constantly wandering around countries, increasingly heading to the land of water. Yugo basically locked himself in Konoha, meditated at the waterfall near the Valley of the End, and only went on missions in the most extreme cases. What else he had been doing all these years, no one knew, except perhaps the Hokage. Sasuke walked cheerfully to the training ground, telling some educational story about the Uchiha Dojutsu. The warning not to use Manjikyu was heard more than once, but it was necessary to train the skills of these eyes. And Sasuke regretted just a little that Orochimaru had curled up into a knot so early. This snake would have found a way, or even spare Sharingans, to figure out Daisuke and Eternal Manjikyu. No matter how much Sasuke understood that he had his brother's eyes, he did not want to give them to Daisuke. After all, this was all that was left of Itachi. However, on the other hand, this was also all that was left to the orphan from his father. And the Uchiha was still rushing about, not knowing what to do in this situation. Naruto read the mission description with a frown. His students sat in a circle on the ground and quietly whispered about something. Kurama was also present, but he chose to hide in the shadows, under a tree. "Hey! Sensei, are we going on a mission or are we just going to sit here?" shouted Isami, who was really fed up with the inaction. Yes, Naruto nodded absently, "Let's go now." The students sighed heavily, their teacher had not seemed like himself for the last week. Quiet, silent and thoughtful, constantly frowning. Where was their cheerful sensei? Where did they put him? It was all terribly simple. Tsunade had decided to give him her Hokage post, and Naruto couldn't believe his dream would come true. And as often happens, he was simply at a loss. He didn't know what to do, how to react. Instead of joy, he felt, but didn't feel anything, just a frightening emptiness had formed in his soul. He had a similar state after the war. Apart from Tsunade and Naruto, no one else knew about her decision, for now. Soon, the female Hokage was going to convene a council of Jonin, although their decision was clear even without a vote. Many shinobi, and even ordinary residents, wanted to see Uzumaki as the head of the village. Finally, the blonde rolled up the scroll and put it in his bosom, rose from the ground and beckoned to the students. Kurama disappeared, returning to his cell to catch up on sleep. "So what's the mission?" Daisuke asked. "Escorting a trade caravan from Fire to Earth." "Wow. So we're here for a long time?" Isami was impressed. "Are you against it?" I am raised an eyebrow, already prepared for a long journey. "And besides, it's so interesting, they'll travel and see other countries. And with Uzumaki, no psychos are scary for them." The girl smiled and winked at Daisuke in anticipation of adventure. Uchiha was surprised, but didn't show it. All the girls behaved strangely in his presence, although the guy hoped that at least Ashikaga wouldn't go crazy. The shinobi quickly reached the meeting place. The merchant and the customer were already waiting for them, checking the goods for the last time and shouting at his subordinates. "Ah, Uzumaki Naruto," the man smiled, and in response received a wide smile from the blonde. The merchant was quite young, but his eyes already showed incredible business acumen. Fortunately, the man turned out to be a kind person, which was rare in the commercial environment. "Glad to see you," the merchant nodded. "I am Saito Goro." "And this?" Saito stared at the teenagers. My students, Naruto answered calmly. The smile had already disappeared from his face. He was completely serious. Daisuke, Isami and I am. Nice to meet you. I hope your students are as strong as you. Don't doubt it, Uzumaki grinned. Half an hour for the final preparations. Naruto carefully examined Sato's subordinates. You never know who could have gotten in among them. But no one aroused mistrust, and Uzumaki calmed down a little. The caravan set off. They walked all day to the border of the country, and as soon as they crossed it, kunai, shurikens, senbons flew from the trees at Daisuke and Isami walking ahead. Why is it always like this? Isami exclaimed sorrowfully, drawing his swords and, running chakra through the blades, repelled the first volley of weapons. Daisuke also didn't waste any time and was already pouring fire on the trees. The criminals showed up and the fight began.